Hey everyone! My last video that I posted a couple days ago, there was a question that I thought was really a good question, so I wanted to come back and kind of talk about it a little bit. And the question was basically, if you don't know anybody in the area and you're new and you're moving to a new country, how do you find someone you can trust? And that's a really good question, because if you go to any expat page or any expat group, you'll hear, don't trust anybody, don't trust anybody. And I think that's true. I mean, I guess my first piece of advice would be don't trust anybody. However, when you move somewhere, inevitably you're going to have to trust somebody because you don't know anything about anything. And the reality is the local population doesn't realize that we don't know what we don't know. And we have no way of learning that until somebody tells us. So for example, when I first moved to Uruguay, I rented a house, I went and I put all the bills in my name, and when the lease was over and I was moving out, I went to my realtor and I said, what do I need to do to get the bills out of my name, like the electricity and the water and all of that stuff? She said, don't worry about it, we'll do it for you. Okay, great, that's great, because I really didn't like the process of putting everything into my name and going and trying to do it in Spanish when I didn't really speak Spanish and I had no idea what I was doing, so thank you. About a year later, I get a notice from the electricity company that said I owed like $1,000. And I was like, what? What do you mean I owe $1,000? Like, I took this out of my name, I no longer live in this house. And they're like, well, it's still in your name. So I go back to the real estate company and they're like, no, obviously you have to take it out of your name. And so I go talk to my friends and they're like, yeah, you're the only person that can do it. And I said, well, the realtor told me that they would do it. And they assured me, like, you don't have to worry about it, we'll do it for you. We were very clear, they spoke English, there was no communication problem. And yet, here I was stuck with this really large electricity bill. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that I was the only person that could do it because I trusted the wrong person who told me that they were going to take care of it. And I had no reason to believe that they wouldn't. And so basically, I mean, you are expected to know everything. You can't really trust anybody, and you're really wide open for someone to take advantage of you, to get in a bad situation. There's a lot of problems that can arise from this. So how do you find someone that you can trust? I think there's a lot of nuances. It's very complicated. It depends on who you are. It depends on your situation. I have to start this over because I started getting mosquito bites. And so I think one of the biggest things that I realized pretty early on was that the idea of you don't know what you don't know and nobody else knows that you don't know it is very accurate in all situations. So one issue that you're going to find with locals, well-intentioned locals, I'm not talking about people trying to scam you or people trying to take advantage of you, well-intentioned locals, is that they don't know what we don't know. Because every part of their society, they've grown up in it, and it's like second nature to them. It's natural. And we didn't grow up in the same society or the same culture, and we don't understand the same set of rules that they have. And so there's things that are simple to them that have never occurred to us on any level. And so I think we don't even know the questions to ask, and that's a huge pitfall. So I think the first thing is ask a ton of questions, and even if you think something would be just common or logical or it would only make sense for it to work this way, ask the question anyway, because it might not work that way. I was trying to think of some examples of this, but I know there's been so many times that this has happened to me where I'm like, I didn't even know that I needed to ask this question. I remember when I first came and I was trying to import an item, to legally go through the process of importing something, and I had no idea what I was doing. And every step, they were like, okay, well, you need to go here and you have to pay for this. And I remember at one time I was importing 12 of the same thing, but there were little differences in the 12. And so I remember asking the guy who was the import specialist, I said, okay, so I'm going to this government building and I'm going to pay this fee. Is this the full fee? And he said, yes. And I said, there's going to be no surprises, like this is the fee for everything in total. Yes, that's the fee. Okay, so I go to the building and I go to pay, and it was that times 12. And I was like, no, I was told that this is the fee for everything in total. And so I message him back and he's like, yeah, it's the fee in total for one thing. And it's like, Okay, well, I asked you specifically because, of course, then everything had to be paid in cash. I couldn't use a credit card. I couldn't use a debit card. I had to have the cash. And so it was just like little things that I found to be really difficult. And then there were bigger things where maybe people didn't have the best intentions. They weren't well-intentioned locals. They were trying to take advantage of me. And certain things did happen, but I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't even know that I didn't know it. And so that was a huge pitfall, and it eroded my trust with certain people because I thought, obviously you're taking advantage of me because you're not giving me the full information. And I remember going with one of my really good Uruguayan friends who is just a treasure, and he's actually a realtor now. So if anybody is looking at real estate in Uruguay and you send a message, I will connect you with him because he saved me so many times before he was even in real estate. And he would go with me to buildings and he would say, oh, well, I just thought that you would know this. No, how am I supposed to know that? I have no idea. Like if you go to the United States, everything that seems natural to me, you wouldn't understand because it works so different here. And so that's a huge issue in finding, like, being able to put your trust in someone because you always have to be asking questions and you always have to be on the alert. Now, when it comes to expats, I think one thing that's really important, and I said it in my response to the comment on the other video, is that I don't know exactly how a lot of these people are making their money or they're taking advantage of people. But when somebody gives you advice, when they say, no, you can totally move here and it only costs $1,000 a month for 4 people and you can live here and do this and do that, and it's absolutely not true. I think it would be really important before taking their advice and before listening to them to say, hey, I'd love to come see where you live. I'd love to come see what kind of house you live in. Because I know that I've done this with people before. I've gone to their house and they don't have running water. They live in a way that I would never want to live. I mean, it's honestly, I've been in places that are absolutely disgusting. And I know that that sounds rude, but it's just the truth. Why would I want to move to a country where I don't have any family, I don't know anybody, I don't speak the language fluently, to suffer? I wouldn't. And I don't think anybody wants to do that. So you should go see where they live. You should find out what their job is. Like, how are they making their money? Are they retired? Maybe they're retired and they have a certain amount of money that comes in every month. That's great. Maybe they work online. Maybe they're the digital nomad type. Maybe they're just independently wealthy. I don't know. But if the way that they're making money is in the country and they're suffering and they're struggling to do that, I would find out if they are telling you to use certain people and they're making money off of that, they're receiving commission, kickback, whatever. I would find out. I would want people to be honest. If they're receiving a commission, great. I just want to know about it. Have you used this person or are they giving you money? So I think that there's really important questions to ask someone. Like, where's your money coming from? I mean, obviously you don't ask someone that straight up, but you can kind of get to know them. What do you do for work? Where do you live? How long have you lived here? Because people will paint you a picture of paradise that truly doesn't exist. Now, as I've said many times, I'm so glad that I moved here. I do not want to live in the United States. I do not want to raise my kids in the United States. This has been a great choice for us. But everybody has different experiences, and a lot of people that are struggling, like, you need to know that they're struggling. Don't just meet someone online, take their advice, because a lot of people, even if they're scammers, even if they're bad people, they came here with similar intentions that we did, and something has happened to put them in a situation to where they're really just trying to survive. Don't trust those people. Don't trust them if they're trying to survive. I mean, there's been so many people that I know can't leave the country because they have no money, and they are painting this beautiful picture of this paradise that they've come to, and they're so thankful that they came here, and you can buy this piece of property from me, you can buy this house from me, when the reality is they can't go back to their home country because nobody wants to buy their house. And some of these places are literally living in squalor, and it is not uncommon. It's not uncommon. And then you find people that come because they're criminals. There's a lot of criminals that come down here. You don't want to get mixed up with them because they will pull you into a mess. There are people that are doing residencies, and you may think that it's a good deal because they can get it faster. They can get through all of these requirements that other people have to do, and you somehow don't have to do it. That's not a good idea, because There's specifically one that I know of who is legitimately a criminal and steals people's money from their bank accounts and screws them over with, he works with realtors, and then at the very last second, oh, there's another person interested in buying this house, and so you have to raise the price and you have to offer this so that you can get the house if it's what you really want. And people will offer $100,000 more, $200,000 more, and this person will just pocket it. They'll split it with a realtor and pocket it. Other people have, there's been some people that have not made it out alive working with certain people. So you have to be very careful who you work with. Find someone that people that have settled well have used. If somebody is low prices or can get around something really easily, be careful. A lot of people overcharge, so don't always go with the one with the highest prices. But you have to be careful who you give you're giving a lot of information to these people. You're giving your passport, you're giving a lot of identification numbers, you're giving birth certificates, you're giving a lot of information about yourself to somebody that you don't know well. So do research and be careful, because not everyone is doing this with good intentions, and not all services are created the same. Sometimes the cheap ones, you'll have to rehire someone. Best case scenario, they didn't do anything horrible to you, but you have to hire someone else to end up getting all of your information, all your paperwork done and getting your residency and all of that. Or, worst case scenario, they get in on your bank account and they start funneling money. Or another thing that I know that happens is they will tell you, oh, here's someone that you can hire to work in your house. And then that person starts stealing from you, and in the end, they're going to sue you and they're going to take a lot of money from you. So be careful who you give your information to. Find out who they are, find out who they worked with. If they've worked with all these people that are struggling and not doing well in the country, don't go with that person. Go with someone that has established themselves in the country by working with this other person, and they still recommend this person, especially if it's for residency. Just be really, really careful and ask a lot of questions. Look into their organization. Look into the people that are recommending them. There are some people that, I've worked with a couple in Uruguay that I would recommend for Uruguay. I did it myself in Paraguay, so I haven't worked with anybody. Also did it myself in Argentina, so I didn't work with anybody. I wouldn't know who to recommend, but you need to be careful. And then when you get to realtors, that's a whole other issue, because for example, I think it was called in Uruguay, maybe I'm wrong, maybe somebody that's Uruguayan will comment on this and correct me, but I think the paper that you need is called fin de obra. And there was an expat or immigrant that bought a piece of property and it didn't have this paper. And the problem is you can buy it, it's fine, but you can't sell it. And so when they wanted to go sell it and they were trying to sell it to someone that knew what they were talking about, they couldn't sell it. It wasn't possible. And it was obviously, I think, illegal for them to have bought it, but they did. And so it comes back on them. Now it's their problem. It's not the people's problem that they bought it from, it's their problem. And now they have a really big problem because they can't sell this huge investment and this property or this house that they bought. And how would we know that? How would we know that we need that? Because in the US, that's not something that you need. I don't know about other countries, but I know it's not in the US. And so there's just all these little pieces that you don't know until you get in the situation. So how do you trust people, right? You have to look at their place, look how they live, look at how they live. See, are they making money in the country? Are they still bringing money in from outside of the country? Who have they worked with in the past? Are they working with these people that are barely scraping by? Are they working with people who have extreme amounts of money? Are they working with people that come in the country, get in bad situations, and leave? It's really important to see their clientele. It's really important to talk to people that they've worked with, and not just one person, a few people. And just do your research the best that you can. And finding someone that lives in the country that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can ask questions to, that's really important as well. But people that are too willing to help, I don't trust them either, because at the end of unless they're new. If they're new and they just went through the process and they really want to help, that's one thing. But people that have been in the country a while, have been expats a while, have been immigrants a while, they're not going to be as inclined to help because they've had so many people try to get information out of them, and they've spent hours of their life trying to help people, and they're just probably not going to do it anymore. I don't know long-term expats who have integrated well that still spend a significant portion of their time helping people for free. Maybe they start to charge for it or whatever, but it's unusual for people to give a lot of their time for free unless you're friends. And so I would be wary of those people as well, because nobody really does much for free. So find out what people charge up front, find out exactly what their services are, find out exactly what their expectations of you are, and let them know what your expectations of them are. Be very clear in communication, very upfront about everything, and be very aware of all the stuff going on. Like, are they telling you they can do all of these things around the government? Maybe they can, and maybe it's okay, but maybe it's not. So you don't want to put yourself in a situation to where you paid all these people off and you got something kind of maybe not illegal, but maybe less than legal, and then it comes back to haunt you. And if you do that, make sure you do it where there's no cameras. Make sure that you're not in a government building. Make sure that nobody's recording you. I mean, just be really wise about things, because you don't want anything to come back to haunt you. Because the reality is like, even if you hired someone and they go around the law, so to speak, maybe you didn't even know it was illegal. So you just have to be very careful and very wise and very aware. And I mean, I'm a little bit of a hippie, so I always look at like, what kind of vibes does this person have? What kind of energy do they have? What happens if you ask them a question? What happens if you point out something that maybe you saw and you're like, that was kind of weird, and you bring it to their attention? What happens then? So I think those are important things to do. And then the last thing I'll say is recognizing that when you're dealing with locals, you're dealing with a culture that you don't understand. I remember when my kids were first starting school and I was in the parent WhatsApp chats, and at one point, a couple of the moms got into a pretty heated discussion over WhatsApp in the group. And I'm like translating as fast as I can, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like these moms are being brutal with each other. Like, you would never hear people speaking like that to each other for the most part in the US. I mean, people will sing and say rude things, but not in the way that it was being done. And then at the end of the conversation, they ended it with besos and like a little heart emoji or something. And I was like, what just happened? And then they saw each other and they acted totally normal. It's like, we are in a culture that is different from us, and people, like, if I'm in the US and somebody is a bad person and they're a scammer, I'm more likely to be able to understand it because I understand nonverbals in the US. I understand like just the way people act and the way people communicate, but it took me a long time to start to understand that in South America, because they communicate different, their nonverbals are different, and their cultural expectations are different. So you have to realize that maybe they seem super friendly and maybe they seem super nice, and maybe they are. But also, even if they're not, even if they're out to get you and they're bad people, they're still going to come across like that. So be careful the information that you give out, and be careful who you trust, and keep people at arm's length for a while until you've seen them in multiple situations over time. And then maybe you can bring them more into your inner circle, bring them more around your family. Like, trust them a little bit more, because it's just tough. It's tough when you're going into a culture that it has different rules, it has different norms, it has different styles of communication, it has different nonverbals, it has different phrases, and all of that is in most likely a language that you're not a native speaker in. And so we're at a disadvantage, and the first rule is not to trust anybody, and then to be extremely, extremely cautious and ask as many questions as you can, and show up with these people as many times as you can, and go into their world as much as you can, just to try to save yourself from either small or significant pitfalls. Because some people get into really bad situations with legal problems, with losing a lot of money, even not making it out, making it home. And I know that sounds extreme, but it is the reality. And so be very careful who you trust, and like I said in the last video, I'm not selling anything. I'm not pointing you to anybody that can help. I mean, if you message me and you're in an area that I know, I'm happy to maybe give references. But even with that, I want to be careful because I don't want to ever be the cause of somebody getting in a bad situation. And even if somebody was good to me, I mean, I can't guarantee that they're going to be good to everybody else. But I think that it is possible. I've made really good connections in all 3 countries that I've lived in. I also had some decently large pitfalls in Uruguay before I knew the language, before I knew how things worked. But I still met some wonderful, wonderful people there. I have amazing friends that are Uruguayan. I have amazing friends that are from Argentina, and I have amazing friends so far, even though I'm new here in Paraguay, that have been very helpful, and I've been really grateful for, and I'm really thankful for them. And so I hope that all of you guys that are watching this will meet those people that are genuine and that help you and that aren't trying to take you for everything that you have, no matter how big or little your bank account is. It's still significant when somebody starts taking stuff from you that isn't theirs. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of talk about that, and hopefully it's helpful to somebody.